Hello, everybody. Happy Sunday. We're here for another episode of the Lions Grid. Today, we'll be doing sort of an episode that's pulling double duty. We'll be doing the pick'em like we usually do, and then we'll also be talking about today's game between the Cowboys and the Detroit Lions. And you can see in the thumbnail, decided to step up the meme game early. Usually only tossing memes in the thumbnails for the post-game episodes. But, of course, today's game between the Lions and the Cowboys loses a little bit of its luster again with Matt Stafford having to sit out with that back injury. So, I think it's going to be no surprise that where we make our picks for that game. So, little lackluster. Anyways, to start off, of course, there's already been one game played this week. You had the game between the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Cleveland Browns that ended in that melee there with Myles Garrett getting suspended indefinitely. But for that game, Joe went with the Browns, so he's starting off on a good note here this week, going 1-0. I unfortunately went with the Steelers, so unfortunately chalking up already my first tally there in the loss column. We'll have to hope here that we can make up for that as the further we go. Little embarrassing there what you saw out of the Browns. Jeff, to your point, doesn't seem like there's a whole lot of coaches with a whole lot of influence over those players. They kind of do what they want, and what they want to do is kind of dirty. So we'll have to see. I'm kind of surprised that obviously they brought the band hammer down on Myles Garrett, but I know there was the one player who tweeted out that picture that he was happy, that he had knocked Juju Smith-Schuster out of the game with a concussion. I'm kind of surprised that there hasn't been more handed down just targeting the Browns as an organization. I think at this point it's not going to come. If it was going to happen, I think it would already have happened. The Browns are not my favorite team. It's kind of interesting that they've become dirtier without Greg Williams than they were with Greg Williams. Certainly he's a guy has a reputation for pushing the boundaries of what's acceptable in football. But without him as a defensive coordinator, they seem to be doing just fine in that category. Moving on to today's games, of course, I think the first place to start with today's game is there are 4 teams on a bye this week. You got the Green Bay Packers, the New York Giants, Seattle Seahawks, and the Tennessee Titans. Not as many as the previous week where there were 6 teams on a bye in Week 10, but still 4 teams out of action this week. And without further ado, let's kick in and take a look here at today's matchup. So starting things off, you got the New York Jets traveling to take on the Washington Redskins. And in this game, both me and Joe going with the Jets in this one. I did almost go with Washington in it, just because I really haven't liked what I've seen out of the Jets this season, but I think there's been more to like about the Jets than what we've seen out of Washington, so ultimately that swayed me in the Jets side of things. But it has been a rough season for both of these teams. Really, you don't want to win because you want to have a better draft position, and the Jets are 2-7, I want to say, on the season, and the Redskins are 1-8. So it's both of these teams certainly playing for the off season, not the postseason. And really, I think you'd rather lose this game, but I have a feeling because you'd rather lose it, the Jets will find a way to get the win. Next up, we have a pretty good matchup in the AFC South. You got the Jacksonville Jaguars traveling to Indianapolis to take on the Colts. The Jags are 4-5, the Colts 5-4. Jacoby Brissett will be under center, but he is missing T.Y. Hilton and Paris Campbell. All those things considered, me and Joe are split. Like I said, this should be a pretty good game, but Joe's going to go ahead and go with the Colts in this one. And I'm going to go with the Jaguars. If this was a couple of weeks ago before Jacoby Brissett got hurt, the Colts were certainly on a roll. They beat a couple of really good teams in the AFC. I would definitely be down with going with the Colts, but since that injury and some other injuries that have been plaguing the Colts, it seems like it might have shifted their trajectory a little bit there. And, I like Gardner Minshew and the Jaguars. They bring some good stuff to the table, and we're going to roll with them here. We'll see how it goes. Next up, we do have another divisional matchup. This time it's the AFC East as the Bills set to square off in Miami against the Dolphins. Of course, the Dolphins now have 2 wins on the season, so they are 2-7. Buffalo coming off kind of a surprising loss last week, dropping them to 6-3. Both me and Joe predicting that the Bills get back to business here against the Dolphins. Not really a surprise there, but both going with the Bills over the Dolphins. And this next game, we will definitely talk about it a little bit more, but as sort of mentioned, breaking out the Spider-Man meme in the thumbnail, it's the Cowboys versus the Lions. Matt Stafford on the bench. I don't think it's going to be too surprising here, but even on the Lions grid, we're locking in the Cowboys to get the win here. This would be a very surprising loss if the Cowboys did somehow manage to lose to a Jeff Driscoll-led Lions team. Like, this might be finally the loss that would get Jason Garrett fired. There's been some talk about Jason Garrett in past seasons with him being on the hot seat, and he's managed to make it through all that stuff, make it through all that adversity and calls for his head. But if you lose to a Jeff Driscoll-led Lions team, I don't know if there's any dodging that. That might finally be the straw that breaks the camel's back right there. Nick Foles is playing for the Jaguars. That's right. I know, because they just had their bye and he was coming back after the bye. Good point. Well, I still like Nick Foles too. You know, he's a Super Bowl MVP. He's pretty good. Yeah, so we got the Cowboys there. Next up, out of the the 1 o'clock games, we have what might be my favorite matchup of the day. You got the Houston Texans traveling to Baltimore to take on the Ravens. I chose the Texans to represent the AFC in the Super Bowl. Clearly losing J.J. Watt's a big loss, but you know what? I'm going to stand by them here today. Joe's going with Baltimore, which may be the better pick, but I will stand by my preseason pick of the Super Bowl team, and I'm going to go with the Texans. It is going to be a tough task to go on the road into Baltimore and get the win. I don't know 100% that they can do it, but I will take them. I like their chances. They're a pretty good team. Sometimes they do play a little, they have letdown games, but I'm hoping here against a quality opponent, you see them come out here and do some good stuff against the Ravens. But we'll have to see how that goes. Should be a pretty good matchup there in that 1 o'clock hour. Next, we have 2 NFC South matchups. The first one we got is Atlanta traveling to Carolina to take on the Panthers. Atlanta played pretty well last week, but me and Joe both going with Carolina in this one. Sort of a surprise to see them beat the Saints. But I got to think Carolina can win this game because Atlanta hasn't been very good on the season. They did lose Austin Hooper too, their tight end, who'd been playing very well. I'm going with the Panthers in this one. Mostly because I've been burned by the Falcons every time I've picked them this season, so we're going with the Panthers. And speaking of the Saints, they will be traveling to Tampa Bay to take on the Buccaneers. And even though Tampa Bay is one of those dangerous teams that likes to put up a lot of fantasy football points and yardage and all that good stuff, me and Joe both going with the Saints getting right here, coming off that loss, as mentioned, to the Falcons, getting a win in Tampa Bay to get back on that winning track. So, couple of NFC South matchups there to happening in the 1 o'clock hour. And then the last of the 1 o'clock games, you get to see the Minnesota Vikings travel to I think Denver's actually traveling to Minnesota to take on the Vikings. And in that game, me and Joe going with, hopefully this is the right button. It is. We're going with the Vikings in this game. Allen definitely came in, and the Broncos seem to have a little bit more life with him, the rookie at QB over Joe Flacco. But the Vikings are, I think, one of the better teams in the NFL, and should be able to take care of business against a Broncos team that doesn't seem like they will be heading towards the postseason, the playoffs in any sort of capacity. So I think it's a pretty safe bet to go with the Vikings in this one. The next game is an NFC West matchup between the Arizona Cardinals and the San Francisco 49ers. The 49ers did lose that heartbreaking game in overtime to Seattle. I think George Kittle, I'm not sure if he's ready to go yet for the 49ers or not. I know he's been injured, he had to sit out last game. But regardless of Kittle's availability in this game, me and Joe both going with the 49ers. They've been the better team on the season. I like what I've seen out of Arizona, but not enough to like I've liked what I've seen out of San Francisco more. So it's a pretty safe pick, I think, to go with the 49ers in this game. Next up, you have a Super Bowl rematch between the Patriots and the Eagles, and I have a very simple rule when it comes to pick 'em, and it served me well all but 1 week this season, and that is when in doubt, pick the Patriots to win, and me and Joe both going with the Patriots in this game. A big game for the Eagles. The Eagles currently tied with the Dallas Cowboys. Well, I think the Cowboys technically have the head-to-head win, so they're currently solely in first place. But both teams sitting at 5-4, the Cowboys and the Eagles, that is. So an important game for the Eagles, one that they would probably like to win. But unfortunately for them, the opponent they will be taking on are those 8-1 Patriots, and not likely to get that win. Just again, better safe than sorry. Go with the Patriots when doing pick'em. Next up, we have the Cincinnati Bengals traveling to take on the Oakland Raiders, and the Raiders should improve to 6-4 this week, and actually apply some pressure to the Kansas City Chiefs, who are currently sitting at 6-4. I think at an early point in the season, certainly would have thought that Kansas City was your undisputed favorite for the AFC West title, but the Chiefs are in a little bit of a pickle. Doesn't look as clean as it once did. They'll be the Raiders are there nipping at their heels. They're playing the they're playing the Chargers on Monday Night Football. It's going to be a very interesting week for that AFC West picture, because the Raiders should be able to get that win there against the Bengals, and they're right there. They're right there. A lot's going to come down to what the Chiefs can do against the Chargers. For Sunday Night Football, we do have a matchup between the Chicago Bears and the Los Angeles Rams. Both teams rather disappointing, coming off some. The Bears did get a win last week against the Jeff Driscoll-led Lions. Their offense did look a little better. You know what? I'm going to stand by them. I'm going to go with the Bears because I really haven't liked what I've seen out of the Rams this season. They definitely don't seem, you look at who else they have in their division. Of course, they have the 8-1 49ers, and then they also have the 8-2 Seattle Seahawks. So it's a tough division for the Rams. Of course, the Bears don't have it much easier. The Packers are 8-2, the Vikings 7-3. I think, unfortunately for both of these teams, they're just in very talented divisions. They haven't been playing as well, the best football that they can. But you know what? I'm gonna go with the Bears in this one because the NFC North has done very well against non-NFC North teams, and I'm hoping that will continue to be the trend. But certainly, I can understand people not liking the Bears because what we've seen out of Mitchell Trubisky in that offense has been dreadful. As mentioned, the last game of the week, game number 14, is the Monday Night Football matchup between the two AFC West rivals. You got Kansas City traveling out to Los Angeles to take on the Chargers. Both me and Joe going with the Chiefs, so I did mention that the Raiders potentially getting the win against the Bengals would apply some pressure to the Chiefs. If the Chiefs were to somehow lose this game to the Chargers, which is possible, the Chargers I think they've had a disappointing season. They've been dealing with a ton of injuries. They were a playoff team in previous years. They haven't been playing at that level consistently throughout this season, but if Kansas City was somehow to drop this game to the Chargers on Monday night, that would make that AFC West standings very, very interesting, because if you look at it, that would drop the Chiefs to 6-5, the Raiders would be 6-4, the Chargers would be sitting there at 5-6. It'd be sort of a three-team race there for that AFC West title. And, if I'm the Chiefs and Andy Reid, I want to avoid that. I want to come out here and reestablish dominance. It wasn't that long ago that the Chiefs were considered to be the second-best team in the AFC. We need to see a little bit of that on Monday night, because right now that it hasn't happened yet, but that AFC West playoff picture is getting a little murky. And if I'm the Chiefs, I want to sort of put any of that controversy to bed because you don't want that. Don't need that extra stress. Go ahead and come out here and show that you are the best team and handle business here against the Chargers. As mentioned, well, we'll talk a little bit here now about the Lions game, and obviously the big story, Matt Stafford being out. Really, at this point, with him missing 2 games, myself, I'd really like to see them put him on IR, shut him down for the season, because this is 2 years in a row where he's dealing with the same injury, and clearly. Either the same injury or it's in the same area. Like, he just needs time to get healthy and get right. And whether or not Matt Patricia and Bob Quinn stick around, I think they will be here next year. So if I'm them, if I know I'm sticking around, I'm certainly resting him, because the best chance of winning is with Matt Stafford. You're not going to be making the playoffs this season. You started out 0-3 in the NFC North, and me and Joe were talking about it all season long. One of the most important things is how you play against your divisional opponents. Starting 0-3 is not the start you wanted. You'd have to win out the rest of the way, and the fact that you're starting Jeff Driscoll today against the Dallas Cowboys doesn't help out. Doesn't increase your chances of it happening. So honestly, I'd rather they just sit Stafford down for the rest of the season, let him get healthy, if they want to see what they have in Jeff Driscoll or David Blau, sort of figure out who's going to be the backup moving forward. I guess I haven't said it in an episode of the Lions Grid, but I wouldn't be opposed to them going out and signing Colin Kaepernick. Like, let Jeff Driscoll and David Blau start a couple of games here, and then bring in Colin Kaepernick, get him acclimated to the system, then put him out there and see what you got. Because I honestly think that Colin Kaepernick would be the best backup QB that the Detroit Lions have had in years. And that would give you confidence moving forward, that even if Stafford did get hurt, you'd have a chance. Obviously, Colin Kaepernick, his skill set similar to Russell Wilson, in that that he's a mobile quarterback that can throw on the run, something that David Bevel, our offensive coordinator, is very familiar with. So I think he could be very successful in our offense, matching him up with David Bevel again. But that's what I'd like to see. The reports out of his tryout, of course, there was a little bit of a circus with the site being moved at the last moment and all that good stuff, but everything that I've seen from people actually commenting on his ability to throw the ball, it looked. I know the one guy said that he had elite arm talent, just like he did coming out of college. Bring him in. I think he's already, like, you could bring him in and start him, and he would be better than Jeff Driscoll and David Blau. I think to put him in the best position to succeed long term, though, you bring him in, let Jeff Driscoll go for another game or two, so that he has time to get acclimated to the offense and all that good stuff, and then you'd put him in and see what you got. Because I do think moving forward, he could be a very solid backup quarterback for the Lions. And I mean, honestly, if he wasn't already 32, he could potentially be, a good person to fill in for Matt Stafford, because Stafford's getting up there in years. But I don't think, in terms of a long-term solution. I don't think he's like the next franchise quarterback for the Lions, but I certainly think he would add a lot of stability there to our depth chart in the QB play. From the rest of the team standpoint, we're beat up at the running back spot. I'm not sure if Ty Johnson's been ruled out of this game or not. And actually, let's head over to the Lions Twitter page real quick here and see who all has officially been ruled out of this game. Just a moment here. We're pulling it up. Lions Grid. Great. Fabulous. Get out of here. Let's see. Detroit Lions. Okay, so the people that are inactive today for the Lions, as mentioned, Matt Stafford up there number first. We have Mike Johnson, cornerback Bo Benchel. I feel like Bo Benchel's been out a lot of games. He's a guard. Dan Skipper, Rick Wagner, Deshaun Hand, and Romeo Aquara. So our defensive line's beat up. It does look like Ty Johnson will be a go today, because I don't think he got placed on IR or anything. So he should be running today, but there's certainly been a lot of injuries for the team. And we talked about it earlier this season when they had the chance to have the bye week prior to playing the prior to playing the Packers, and the fact that that would require them to go on a long stretch of playing continuous games, and it's certainly taken its toll. Like and unfortunately, they weren't able to capitalize on it to get the win in Green Bay. Yes, there were some questionable calls that I think did affect the outcome of that game, but at the end of the day, it's still a loss in the loss column. And you weren't able to take advantage of the fact that you could heal up before that game and play. And now the injuries have sort of been hitting us pretty hard. Darius Slay seems to get hurt every week, but he seems to be out there at least to start the game. Of course, there's also the tension between him and the Lions organization at this point, where I don't think he's going to be a Lion moving forward because, number one, not only do they not extend him, but there's clearly some hard feelings between Darius Slay and the organization doesn't seem to care very much about the fact that they've created those hard feelings. Not a recipe for long-term success there. So, offensively, defensively, ton of injuries. I like what I've seen out of the offense on the season. When Matt Stafford was out there and they were playing well, Matt Stafford was having an MVP type of season, one of his best statistical seasons ever. He was playing lights out, and I liked what I was seeing out of the offense. Defensively, it is what it is. It hasn't looked good. I think they've definitely taken a step back from the previous year. The sort of bend, don't break, give up a ton of yardage hasn't worked for this team. We spent a lot of money on that defensive line, and Trey Flowers the last couple of weeks has certainly been coming alive, playing better, but they still haven't been able to really show that all that money was worth it. Of course, it's been hard for them to get everybody out there. Deshaun Hand's hurt again. Quara's out this week. Mike Daniels, it looks like, will be playing this week, but he didn't play last week. Like, it's the full squad hasn't been out there, I think, very many snaps. Defense hasn't looked good. And I think, like I said, from a Cowboys perspective, the Cowboys should come in here and crush this game. They should just come in and show that there's no doubt that they are one of the best teams in the NFC. This is a chance to do it. You're playing the Lions. You can take advantage of them throwing the ball. You can take advantage of them running the ball. Like, come out here and just light it up. And if they don't, I would be surprised. And if, like I said, by some stroke of fate, they somehow lose to a Jeff Driscoll Lions team, I don't know. I feel like Jason Garrett should be fired before they even fly home at that point. If they somehow manage to lose this game, because on paper, certainly with Matthew Stafford out, it is all Cowboys. Should be all Cowboys. It was probably going to be a Cowboys win even if Matt Stafford played. But it should definitely be a Cowboys win without Matt Stafford. I guess the only thing that might throw them off is if they come in there with that attitude expecting to win and I guess don't come out with an edge against the Lions. But again, they're 5-4. They're right there with the Eagles. They need wins. Their hold over the NFC East is not secure. This is an opportunity for them to win against a team that's certainly beaten up and is vulnerable. And if you don't take advantage of it, shame on the Cowboys. But yeah, I'm thinking it's going to be a tough day for the Lions. If you are going down there to Ford Field to watch that, if you stay for the whole game, kudos to you, because I'm thinking that could get ugly. But yeah. We'll have to see. Anyways, that's going to do it for today's episode of the Lions Grid. Thank you for everybody who's been commenting. Jeff and my dad, appreciate you watching today and taking the time to add in your comments. I'm with you guys. I'm hoping they sign Colin Kaepernick. I'd like to see him, and it'd be cool if the Lions were the team to bring him in. But we'll have to see. We'll have to see. If you did enjoy the show, please do help the channel grow. Hitting that like button on the video and subscribing to the channel if you haven't done so are the two best ways to help support us at this time. We do have a goal of reaching 100 subscribers so we can unlock a custom URL for our YouTube channel. Making good progress there, but still need some help, so if you haven't subscribed, please consider doing so. We'll be back again tomorrow to do our recap and talk about what we see here in the Dallas Cowboys-Detroit Lions game. I imagine we're going to see a Cowboys win. But if it's something different, maybe we'll have a little bit more to talk about tomorrow. But yeah, until the next episode, I'm Kevin Marheine. This has been the Lions Grid. We'll catch you during the next video. Have a great rest of your Sunday, everybody. Bye-bye.